everyone. My name is Nikki Sher, and I am here with Echo Park and Carta to bring you the Farmhouse Summer Class Kit. I'm very excited to be here with you guys, making this along with you. I wanted to go over a few things that are going to be in your kit, and then we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. So the first thing that you are going to see most likely is that you have this supply list. Okay, so inside your actual kit from the store, you're going to have your Farmhouse Summer Collection Kit. So that includes your 12 pieces of paper and the sticker sheet on the back right here. Okay. Then you should have 5 pieces of cardstock. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am using the ultra white felt from Carta today. It's a very nice white paper, and it has this really pretty texture. I don't know if you can see that, but it's like the same texture that's on the Carta paper. So I really like that. And then you should also have your adhesive brads. Okay. And then there is going to be a set of magnets. So you might have this in your kit, or you might have had to pull this from your stash, but I am using the basic gray large magnets, and you're really just going to need 2 sets. So 4 total. And I just went ahead and actually cut this off. It comes in a pack of 12, and I just cut 1 row off, and that's what I'm going to be using in class today. Okay. Then additionally, in your student supplies, you're going to go ahead and need your paper trimmer, scoreboard, which I have off to the side over here, your bone folder, a corner rounder, 3/8 inch strong double-sided tape. So I'll be using score tape today. And then scissors, your favorite wet and dry adhesive, and a ruler. Now, optionally, you'll notice that there are spaces for photos in the pictures of the album. If you want to go ahead and do the photos mats just like I did, you're going to need 2 more sheets of white cardstock. And I've also included the sizes of the photo mats that I use down here at the bottom on this list. Okay, we can come back to a little bit more of that later. But what I also want to show you is that this was most likely either printed or sent to you via email from the store. So this is going to be your cutting guide and directions. Okay, so the first part here is what we're going to go through to cut all of the white paper. Okay, and this has diagrams on it. Might look a little scary, but don't worry, I'm going to make this real nice and easy for you guys. Okay, and then once we get past all those diagrams, we're going to go ahead and we'll get into the cutting guide for the pattern paper. Okay, so this just is the directions in terms of cutting guide and how to put it together and glue, etc. Okay, then additionally, also either from the store or attached in an email to you guys was the photographs. Okay, so these are the photographs of the finished album. And this is for embellishment purposes, as well as if you want to kind of follow along while we're working on it. And do that. But really, we're going to work on making the folio today and putting down the pattern paper. All embellishing will be done at your leisure. Okay, so that's where you're going to kind of see all of these photos for that. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to put these to the side. Really, what we're going to be needing is this guy right here, because this is what I'm going to be working off of today. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and start with our white cardstock. So I'm really just going to put that collection kit and the brads to the side for now. Okay, and how I like to work on my directions is I like to actually highlight or use a pen as I'm going. Okay, so I don't, I did give you guys basically everything you're going to need. So for this is diagram 1 right here. And you're going to cut the size of this diagram and then all the score marks. However, while I'm doing this with you guys, I'm actually going to go through and we're going to cut all the pieces first. Okay, and then we'll go back and score everything. So the reason I'm doing that is just so that I don't have to go back and forth between my trimmer and my scoreboard all the time. Okay, but as I do it, I'm going to go ahead and highlight what I've done so that I can remember, that I finished that piece. I do really like these Firxon highlighters because they're erasable. So if I made a mistake and I didn't quite do that yet, I do have that option to go ahead and unhighlight it or erase it. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and read right here. So the cardstock folio instructions and cutting guides, the following directions are for the white cardstock 5 pieces provided in your kit. Perfect. So the first thing we're going to do is cut 1 piece of cardstock to 8 3/4 by 10 1/8. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take 1 piece of cardstock, go ahead and open up my trimmer here. And I'm going to cut that 8 3/4 piece first. I'm just taking it to that 8 3/4. And I'm going to make a nice straight cut there. I'm going to save my scraps till the end. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and turn this guy and cut him at 10 1/8. So 10 1/8 is the tick mark, or the larger tick mark after 10. So between 10 1/4 and 10 is your 10 1/8. And I'm going to save this guy too, just in case. But this is my first piece cut. So I'm actually just going to go ahead right here, and I'm just going to highlight my cut 1 piece of cardstock as I'm done. Okay. Then in the next direction down here, I'm going to skip this again for right now. We'll come back to that. It says cut 1 piece of cardstock to 2 pieces of 6 by 12. Okay. Well, that's easy enough. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my next piece of cardstock here, and it's 1 piece into 2 pieces. So I'm just going to cut it straight down the center at 6. Okay. Go ahead and line that up with my guy over there. And then I'm going to go ahead and highlight this one. Okay. And let's see what the next direction says. So the next direction says cut 1 piece of cardstock to 4 pieces of 4 1/4 by 6. Okay. So 1 piece of cardstock to 4 pieces. So I'm actually going to make that 6-inch cut mark first. Okay, so I'm going to cut that 1 piece down to 6. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that and do 4 1/4. Okay, so I got 1 piece of 4 1/4 by 6. I have another piece of 4 1/4 by 6. Okay, and I'm going to take that other half of that sheet that I cut, and I've got another piece of 4 1/4 by 6. And 1 more. So 4 pieces of 4 1/4 by 6. Okay. That's good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and highlight this guy. Now remember, if you need, if I'm going too fast, don't forget you can always pause, rewind. I don't want you to worry about getting, behind or anything like that. You guys are going to be just fine, I promise. Okay, so, and then it says from 1 piece of cardstock, cut 2 pieces of 4 3/4 by 2 5/8. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to cut that 2 5/8. So 2 5/8 is the 1/8 inch mark between 2 1/2 and 2 3/4. So I'm going to cut that 2 5/8 inch piece first. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut my 4 3/4 inch piece next. So I got my 4 3/4. And I'm going to cut my next piece of 4 3/4. So now I've got those 2 pieces. So I'll go ahead and highlight that. Okay, then there's some additional measurements down here. So it says from the scraps of white cardstock, cut the following. Okay, so it looks like the 2 of them are going to be 8 1/8. So I'm actually going to cut that one first, and I'm going to use what I have left over here first, and then I'm going to save my last full sheet just in case. So I'm going to do 8 1/8 first. Okay, so I have 8 1/8, and I'm just going to go ahead and trim right off of that. Okay, now the 8 1/8 is the tick mark, or the 1/8 inch mark right after 8. Okay, so between 8 1/4. Then I need one that's 5 inches. So I'm going to cut at 5. And I need another one that is 2 3/4. One at 2 3/4. So these ones are not getting scored. So I'm going to kind of put them in a separate pile over here. And I'm gonna go ahead and highlight that and that one because I did both of those. And then we need 2 pieces that are 3.5 by 4.5, and then 6 pieces that are 3.25 by 4.25. So I'm going to go through my scraps first and see if I have anything that is large enough to make those. So let's see how big this guy is. This guy looks like he might work for the 2 pieces. So let's try 3.5. I'm going to cut them down to 3.5. Okay. And then by 4.5. And I'm supposed to have 2 of those. Let's see if I can get 2 out of this piece. And I can. So that is 4.5. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that one as being done. And again, this is a not scored piece, so I'm going to put that over here. Then I need 6 pieces that are 3.25 by 4.25. So I know that I don't have enough scraps completely to get all of that, but I do have probably some that I can get away with. So this actually piece right here is 3.25. So that's free. So then I'm just going to cut this guy down to 4.25. Okay, and I need 6 of them. So it was already measuring 3.25, and I'm just going to get 2 4.25 pieces out of that. And then these 2 pieces they're the same size. Let's see if I can get these to work. So these are about 3.5, so I can turn them into 3.25 by 4.25. Okay. I do like to cut everything from my scrap first if possible, just so that if something does go wrong, I kind of have that large sheet left over to, play around with in case something, like I said, goes wrong. So now I've got my 4 pieces of 3.25 by 4.25. Okay. The rest of these are pretty narrow, pretty small pieces, and nothing that I've cut so far would actually work with these. So I'm going to put these in the trash because even if something was messed up, I couldn't use these because they are not large enough. So all of these little pieces right here are going to go in my trash and then in my recycle trash. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this last piece here and cut 1 strip of 3.25 by 12. And then I will get my last 2 pieces of 4.25 out of that. Okay. And so I've got 6 pieces of 3.25 by 4.25 right here. Okay. Again, not in the being scored department. Perfect. So that is all of the cutting done for our white paper, at least. And again, I have this big scrap here, so I'm going to keep that to the side over here just in case I need it. And I'm going to put my trimmer on the side, and I'm going to pull out my scoreboard here. And I'm going to go back to page 1. And I'm going to go in the same order that I went before, but I'm going to use that largest piece on the bottom first. Okay, so I have this big piece that I cut. This was the first piece of 8.75 by 10 1/8. And I'm going to go ahead and just push this up just a little bit. Can I get this a little more centered? And I need to, so it says with the 8.75 inch side at the top of your scoreboard. Okay, so this right now is 10 1/8, so I need to turn it. So I'm going to turn this guy so that it's the 8.75 mark. So it's hitting 8.75 on my scoreboard over here. Score at 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to do 1/2 inch. Okay, then score at 1.25. Okay, so 1.25. So I did 1/2 inch and 1.25. Now I'm doing 7 3/8. Okay, 7 3/8 is there's 2 ways I like to do this. So 3/8 is the tick is between 1/4 and 1/2. But the nice thing about your scoreboard is that it's 1/8 inches. So you can actually just go from 7 and do 1, 2, 3. And that is how you find your 3/8 mark. Okay. So whether it's 3/8 or 5/8 or 7/8, you can just count 1, 2, 3, and then, that's going to be your 3/8 versus 5/8, etc. Okay. And then the last one is 8 1/4. Okay. Now it says turn 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm turning it 90 degrees. And it says with the 10/8 inch side at the top of your scoreboard, score at 1/2 inch. Okay. And 1 inch. Okay. And 9 1/8. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do 9 and then 1 is my 9 1/8 here. And 9 5/8. So I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's the tick mark in between 9 1/2 and 9 3/4. Okay, perfect. So that is all the scoring I needed to do for that piece right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that to the side. Now for the next piece, it was the one that we cut in half. So we need to score this with the 12-inch side at the top of our scoreboard. So the 12 inches all the way across. And we're going to score this at 4 and 8 and repeat for both pieces. So I'm going to do 4 and I'm going to do 8 and repeat for both. I'm going to grab the next one and do 4 inches and 8 inches. Perfect. Okay. So I've done those. Now, what you can do too for these, if you don't want to highlight, you can just highlight your bullet points as being done with those. Or you can use an erasable pen and check those as well. Whatever is easiest for you. But that's kind of how I like to go about it, because then I know I've done it. But if I ever want to go back and use these directions again, I just erase what's been already there and I can go ahead and do it all over again. Okay, so the next pieces are going to be the waterfall pieces. Okay. Oh, I just see a mistake right here already. Nope, I didn't. I lied. Repeat for all 4 pieces. We're fine. Okay. So with the 4 1/4 side at the top of your scoreboard, score at 3 3/4 and repeat for all 4 pieces. Okay. So that is with the 4 1/4 side at the top of my scoreboard. Okay. So if it's at the 6th, we want to turn it 90 degrees. Okay. And we're going to score this at 3 3/4 and repeat for all 3 pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and 3 3/4. Okay. And I'm going to get my second piece here and 3 3/4. Okay. And 2 more times. 3 3/4. Now this paper is nice and thick, so I haven't had any issues with breakage. I'm not pushing extremely hard, but I'm pushing hard enough to make a nice score line in those papers because I want to be able to know where I'm supposed to be folding. Okay. Now the next piece is for these little guys, next scoring. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight my little bullet points here. And then I'm gonna, okay, so with the 4, so I have these 2 pieces that are 4 3/4 by 2 5/8 left. And it says with the 4 3/4 side at the top of your scoreboard, score at 1/2 inch, 5/8, 4 1/8, and 4 1/4. Okay, so we're making tiny little gussets here. So I have my 4 3/4 side in my scoreboard, and I'm gonna score it at 1/2 inch. So we're just making tiny little gussets. They're 1/8 inch gussets for this. This is going to be the pocket piece. Okay. And then we're going to do 5/8. So that is the tick mark right after 1/2 inch. So see how those are 1/2 inch gussets there? I mean, 1/8 inch gussets, excuse me. And then we're going to go all the way to 4 1/8. So 4 and 1 is 1/8, right? And 4 1/4, which is the one right next to it. So we have these 4 score lines here, but they're very close to the two are very close to each other. Then we need to turn it 90 degrees. And with the 2 5/8 side at your scoreboard, okay, perfect. Score at 2, okay, and 2 1/8. So we're going to do 2 and 2 1/8, which is the one right after it. So we actually have 6 score lines on this, but there's 3 sets very close together. You can see how they are there. Okay, so I'm going to do that for the second piece as well. So we did 1/2 inch. And I am keeping my directions right here so I can look at them as I'm scoring. So 1/2 inch and 5/8, which is the one right next to it. Okay, and then we're doing 4 1/8 and 4 1/4. Okay, and then we're going to turn it 90 degrees. And again, with the 2 5/8 side, which is what we have here, at the top of your scoreboard, score at 2 and 2 1/8. So we've got 2 and 2 1/8. Perfect. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and mark those off here. Perfect. So I think we're done with our scoreboard for now, maybe completely. And I'm going to go ahead and read the next direction. So it's beginning assembly. So we're already beginning assembly. That's amazing. Okay. So the first thing it says is to fold all score lines and burnish all the score lines with your bone folder. So, and then make sure the score lines are straight. So what do I mean by that? So I do have a definition of burnish down here. My English teacher friend told me you have to put that definition. So it says to enhance or perfect. So in this instance, it says it means to use your bone folder to ensure that your lines are clean and straight. So when I say burnish, I don't just mean fold it and burnish it with your bone folder. What I mean is make sure that you have your nice folds, okay, and that your edges line up on each side here, because this is kind of your last chance to fix any sort of wonky mistakes that might happen because of, a wobbly scoreboard or a wobbly foam folder. We've all had those issues, right? So this is kind of my last chance to make sure that I'm getting that nice straight edge on everything. Okay, and I'm just folding over. Okay, and I'm just making sure that I have that nice clean edge. Okay. And my bone folder has like this, it's getting this weird divot in it from me using it too much. So I need to get a new one, but I am using a Teflon bone folder. I love the way that they work because they don't leave any shine or residue on your paper. Okay. So those were my 4 waterfall pieces. Then I'm going to go ahead and let's do our main piece here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fold in. Now, everybody's going to ask this, and I know, and not maybe not everybody, but I get this question asked a lot when I'm teaching, which is which way to fold on the score line. Okay, now there are lots of schools of thought on this. Some people believe that you fold into the valley. Okay, some people believe that you fold into the mountain. I have done it both ways. I find that when you have a good scoreboard and a good bone folder and good quality paper like this, it doesn't necessarily matter which way you fold. Okay. But what it does matter is I actually will look at the side of the paper. For example, if I'm using something that's extra thick and I get this weird lip or something on this piece, I'm going to fold so that piece is that side is hidden. Or if I have, like a rough cut on one edge, that's actually how I choose more which way I'm going to fold than anything else. Right. So, I went ahead and I did, let me just, while I'm talking, I didn't tell you, I did all the inside pieces here. And now I'm going to go ahead and do all of these outside ones next. Okay. So I did those inner score lines and now I'm going to do these outer score lines. But so that's actually, I'm not a mountain versus valley I am more of a which way is going to result in the best looking piece of paper. So that is how I decide. Okay. And I'm just, again, going around and burnishing all these folds. Now, the nice thing about this too is that paper does have a memory. So we are creating a memory for our paper right now. Oops. And I've got one more right here. I'll do this one. Okay. And that looks great. Okay. Next, I have my accordion pieces here. So I know that these are going to be an accordion fold. So I'm actually just going to fold it on itself one way and then fold it the other way. So it's like a zigzag. Yeah. I'm going to do the same thing to this guy. I'm going to fold it in on one side. This is kind of a perfect example of what I mean. I'm just making sure that I'm lining that edge up so that when I do my final bone fold here, it's going to be nice and straight. Okay, and then I'm just going to fold this guy back on itself. And there we go. So I've got my two accordion pieces here. And then we've just got our little pockets. So how I'm going to do these is I'm actually going to fold on that inner one first. Okay, so I'm folding on that innermost fold first. And I'm not pushing super hard on these because this is such a small score. It's actually going to end up being almost more of a rolled look than an actual kind of straight edge score. So, you know, I'm being very gentle as I push my paper kind of up and over, and I'm just kind of doing a very light fold because it's going to be, see how it's kind of turning into more of a rolled edge versus a flat edge. That is perfectly fine. That's what I'm going for. I just needed, these are for our little cards, my pockets for our little cards that are going to be in the bottom part of the folio. And I just needed a little bit more room than what I had without making a little gusset here. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing along the bottom edge. Just kind of rolling that paper and doing a light burnish on that second fold. Okay. Looks pretty good. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to this guy. So I'm folding in on that inner fold, doing a light burnish, folding in on the second fold, kind of just rolling it in my fingers. I use the table to my advantage as well in that sense. Looks good. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Looking good. Okay, and then we're going to do the bottom. Perfect. So we've gone ahead and burnished all of our pieces here. Okay. Now it says the next piece, the next thing we're going to be working on is diagram 1. So main piece back. So that large piece that we cut with first. And it says that we need to cut along the score lines. So once all score lines are burnished, cut out the 4 corners. So if you look on this little diagram, I have like a little red line right here, and it says cut on red line for all corners, and then remove. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that with my scissors here. Okay, and I'm just going to cut right on the outside of that score line. Okay, so I'm cutting right on the outside of that score line, and I'm removing all of those little kind of cubes that I've made from that paper. Okay, and what I mean it by the outside of the score line is so that I'm cutting that complete corner out. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep doing that on all four sides here. Okay. Now, if you're not exactly on the very outer edge of your score line, it's going to be okay. You can just go back in. Like I was a little short here. You can just see it. I'm just going to trim it off. It'll be okay. And even if you don't trim it off, it'll be okay. I promise. Okay. So I'm just cutting out those four corners, and see how I'm cutting out. I'm just going to show you here. We'll focus. Here we go. Those four, see those four little kind of rectangles and squares that we made? That is what we are removing from our main piece here. So this is actually going to end up being at the back of our folio, and we're going to attach all of our flaps to these little side pieces, these little pieces here. Okay. I'm just cutting right on the outside of that score line and removing the corner. Excellent. And if you have like a little, like I have a little extra fluffy paper right here, you just kind of trim that out if you want. Perfect. So that is the look that we're going for. And then it says, once cut should look like diagram 5. So this is exactly what we have. So we have our diagram here with our two tops and two sides, top and bottom and sides. Okay. I'm gonna trash that. Okay. Now we have this kind of larger diagram here. So what this is telling us is how we're going to put everything together. Okay. So it's saying adding the accordion, the top flap, and bottom flap to your main piece. Okay. And it says see diagram below. So we're going to add 3/8 inch double-sided tape to the back of all the 1/2 inch flaps, and I'll show you. And then, so let's just do that first, actually. So this piece right here is our main back piece, okay? And it says back of folio. So what does that mean? That means I'm gonna go ahead and turn this guy over, okay? So I'm looking at the back side here, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put adhesive on the backs of all these little 1/2 inch flaps, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and use my score tape. And the thing that I love about using score tape for things like this is because most of them, everything is a 1/2 inch score, right? You always kind of score that 1/2 inch line, and that 3/8 just fits perfectly right into that 1/2 inch. So that's why, even though it's a 1/2 inch score, you don't want to use 1/2 inch tape, because that's actually going to go over your edge. Okay. We want to use 3/8 inch tape, and I'm just laying it down all the way across this edge here, right? Okay, on the outside of the flap. This is the back of the folio, and this is the outside back of the outside flaps. And I'm just putting 3/8 inch tape along the entire piece. Okay. Now it says we need to add the top of the folio first. Okay. So in those original cut marks that I made, the one that was that 2 3/4 by 8 1/8, that was the top flap. And then the 5 by 8 1/8, that was the bottom flap. So those are what we're going to be adding first, and then the 2 accordion pieces. So, but I need to find the actual top of my folio here, because one of these gussets is actually a little bit larger than the other. So I'm just going to take my ruler here, and I'm just going to measure. I can see the difference. This one is 3/4, and this one is going to be 7/8. Okay. So I know that this is the top. And if you even want to just go ahead and take a pencil or a erasable pen and just put a little T in the center there, you can. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to find that 2 1/8 inch piece. Now this 2 1/8 inch piece is going to go on the top because this is our top flap. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm sorry, 2 3/4 by 8 1/8 inch piece. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this guy back over, but I have my T marked right here for my top. And I'm just going to make sure this is nice and flat and burnished. I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing of my score tape. And I'm going to line up my top flap up to that score line, but not going over. And it should line right up with your 1/2 inch fold. Now, if it hangs over just a little bit, that is okay. That just means you cut a little bit more off than you should have. Not that you should have, just you just cut a little more off when you were cutting out your corners, which is totally fine. You just want to center that piece over that flap and stick it down. And we want to put it right up against that score line, but not over it. Okay. So we have this nice fold happening here. Okay. Looks pretty good. So that was our top flap. Now we need to go ahead and add our bottom flap. So I'm going to turn this guy back over. And if you wanted to do it this way, where you fold your piece in and do it, you can. It's just easier for me personally to do it this way. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take that bottom piece of score tape backing off. And I'm going to go ahead and line it up with the bottom of the flap here and stick it right down. Okay, again, making sure that I am centered on that piece, if I need the little 1/2 inch piece, if I need to be. And look at that, I've already got the bottom and top of my folio. Looks pretty good. Okay, now the next pieces that I need to add are my accordions. Okay, now I just kind of haphazardly folded these. It does not matter which way you folded them, because what we're going to do is we want to make sure that they're going to fold in. Okay, so what I mean by that is once they're attached here, okay, the accordion is kind of laying inside this piece. Okay, so it's pushing down so that when you turn the page, you open the accordion like this. All right. Okay, and the same thing vice versa. Now, if we stick it down and for some reason the accordion is going this way, it is not the end of the world. We'll just fold the pieces back the other way. So I don't want you to stress about this. But what we want to do, if you can, is line up your accordion on the side over here so that your pages are facing down. Okay, the folds are facing down. And we're going to line this edge up and glue this down right here. So I just kind of did it upright. But again, it's easier for me to do it on the back side. So I'm just going to go, I'm going to take this backing off and I'm going to stick this down right on top. Now, if it's a little long, like my piece is a little long for whatever reason, I'm just noticing that, I'm just going to cut a little kind of corner off the edge here. And it's just because I don't want any cardstock showing on the side. Okay. So that just means that time I actually didn't cut enough off. So I just cut a little bit of the corner off of that 1/2 inch flap so that when I go to stick this down, you won't see it on either side. Okay, just like that. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this guy. And I'm going to I'm going to put this so that the accordion is folding in. Okay, just like that. And line it up just like that. So the accordion will fold in. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. and add the accordion again. And let's see, it's a little long on this guy too. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna trim this corner off, just off the 1/2 inch flap side. Lining that up right along that score line, not over it, just right along the edge there. Okay, and turn this guy back over. So my flaps are going out this way for now, but they're gonna fold in and shut like this. Okay, looking good. And then this flap folds up and this flap folds down. That is actually the base of your folio completed. Isn't that looking so good? Now there are gussets here, and they're there for a reason, and we'll go over them. But right now we actually need to go ahead and, well, the next step here says assemble the pockets, except for we actually don't. We can assemble them, but we're not going to adhere them. So I'm actually going to skip to so it says assemble the pockets, and then attaching the pockets to the pocket piece, and then preparing the waterfall, which we will do. But I'm actually going to skip to this adding the magnet portion first, and then we'll go back here. Okay, so I need to go ahead and add my magnets to my folio. Now, from the pictures, you'll probably notice that I did corner round the top and the bottom pieces here, just those pieces. Those are the only things that are corner rounded in the entire album. So I am just going to do that right now so that I don't forget. So I'm going to corner around that top and bottom flap here. Okay. So I'm just corner rounding that top and bottom flap. I know it's kind of flying all over the place right now, but it'll be okay, I promise. Okay. Top and bottom flap. Okay, looking good. And then we're going to make sure that our folio is nicely squared up here. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that my top and my bottom match up, which they do on side to side, that my edges on the bottom and the top are perpendicular to the table. Okay, so they're upright. I can check it this way as well, that I have a nice amount of space there. Okay, and that's looking good. And we're going to go ahead and add our magnets now. The way we're going to do that is we're going to start with them on the flap here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up my magnets. Now, if you're using this same basic gray brand, just as a reminder, there is a clear plastic backing here. So you just want to make sure that you take that out before you start using your magnets. So how do I use magnets? It's very easy. They're listed as negatives and positives. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead. We're going to pop out one positive and one negative, and that is a set. Okay. And I always work with magnets in a set. Now, for whatever reason, this is just kind of my personal thing, is I always start with the positive side. That's just how I am. I find it like if I always do it that way, then I'm always going to have it going the correct direction. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, again, this is looking real good, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my magnet about an inch in and an inch down. Okay. Or maybe a little more, like an inch and a half in and an inch down, right on the inside of that flap. So I took off the positive backing, okay, off of my magnet, and for the adhesive part, and I stuck the positive side down. Now my negative is still attached magnetically to that positive. I could take it off. This is my negative, but I want to leave it attached as a set. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing again on the other side. So I'm taking out my positive and my negative. Okay, and I am magnetizing them together. Okay, so I have my positive and my negative magnetized together here. I'm going to go ahead and take off that positive backing. Now, if you don't have an adhesive backing magnet, that's fine. You can use a glue dot, you can use score tape, whatever you want. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in about 1.5 inches in from the side and 1 inch down. And I'm just going to go ahead and stick that guy in place. I do kind of like to try and line them up on the same level, but if they're a little off side to side, it is fine. Okay, that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to push that down, making sure that my positive magnet is stuck. So my positive magnet is now attached to this top flap. My negative magnet is holding on because of the magnification, not because of anything else. I could take them off at this point, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave them magnetized on, and I'm going to do this one at a time, even though they're magnetized together. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take off my negative magnet sticker here. Okay. Again, if you don't have adhesive, that's fine. Just use a little bit of score tape or a glue dot. Okay. And I'm going to line up my folio. Okay. And what does that mean? Again, I'm going to make sure that I'm straight side to side here and that I am perpendicular top and bottom. If my pages are wonky in terms of like the angles, the bottom here is going out like this or like this, the folio is not going to lay correctly. So I want to make sure that I have that nice perpendicular look, okay, which I do. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to push slightly to get that magnet kind of stuck in place. And then I'm going to slide my fingers in here and really push. And then what that does is it allows me to go ahead and open up this magnet. Okay, they are very strong right now, which is totally fine. And look at that. It is exactly where it needs to be to hold this guy in place perfectly. I didn't have to worry about measuring it. All I had to do was leave it attached magnetically, put it down, okay, making sure that everything was perpendicular, and I was good to go. Okay, so I'm going to show you again. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the negative sticker off the right side over here. Okay, and I'm going to, again, make sure that I am nice and squared up, and it's going to help that that other one catches down there. And again, I'm just going to make sure this went down a little crooked already, I can tell. Okay, I'm nicely squared up. The bottom is squared up. The top is squared up. And by squared up, again, I mean perpendicular here. So it's like it makes a nice square. Okay, and I'm going to lightly push, just kind of getting that thing adhered just a little bit. And then I slide my fingers in between and push real hard, not real hard, just hard enough to get it to stick. And when I lift up, again, my magnet is exactly where I need it to be. And that is adding the magnets. That is it. That is all you had to do. And the magnets are done for this album folio. So then when they go right where they need to be. Now they are very strong right now because there's nothing in between them. But don't forget, we're going to be adding layers of paper. And so we have at least two layers of paper plus any additional decorations that we add in between. Okay, so they will not be as strong, but they will be strong enough to hold your folio closed. All right, so now that we've done this part, our basic folio is complete, except we have to go ahead and get our waterfall ready and get our pockets ready. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to put this to the side for right now. Okay, and I'm going to clean up my little workspace here. And the reason I like to kind of get these things ready now is because it just makes it a little bit easier down the road when I'm working along to go ahead and have it ready to go. Now, the first thing we're going to do is assemble the pocket pieces. Okay, so those pocket pieces are the ones down here. So they're at the bottom here, and they're where we hold our little card pocket inserts. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to assemble these. Now we need to go ahead and remove the corners like we did the first time. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove the corners just like we did on the first diagram, okay, where we were removing corners. So we're going to go ahead and cut on the outside of the score lines, and we're cutting all of these out. So we have a tiny square, a big square, a really skinny long and two really skinny long rectangles. So we're going to cut all of that out. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. And again, I'm cutting on the outside of that score line. Okay, this one was a little short. Okay, a little bit of fuzzy here. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I'm cutting on the outside of that score line into that corner. Looking good. Okay, so that is what I needed to do for that. Then it says, once all are burnished, cut the 2 bottom corners out and add 3/8" double-sided tape to the inside of the 1/2" flaps. So we need to add them to the inside this time. Okay, so that my folds are going in this way. So that means I'm going to go ahead and take my score tape here and put it on the inside of those 1/2" flaps. Okay, so on the inside there and here. And here. Okay. And I'm going to do it for this one as well. So we have our inside flap. Inside flap. Perfect. So we've got all of our inside flaps covered. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the page. Next thing it says, attach the pockets to the pocket piece. So I need to find the 2 pieces that were those 3.5 by 4.5. So they are going to be the 2 larger pieces of what's left over of what I cut. Okay. And what we're going to do is attach the pocket to this pocket piece. So we're just going to go ahead. We're going to lay that guy in, and then we're going to wrap it around and stick it down just like that. Okay. Now, remember, we have these little gussets, so we don't want to push it all the way down. What might be the easiest way, let's try doing it this sideways first. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I took one side off. I'm going to lay this pocket piece right on the inside of my pocket. Okay. So this is the pocket back. Okay. And then this is the pocket. And I've laid it so that it's inside all of those inner score lines. Okay. Including the bottom one. So it's inside that inner bottom score line and the 2 side score lines. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it over, but I'm not going to push it all the way down. I'm leaving that little gusset area to kind of stand up straight along this edge, again, making kind of that perpendicular look, right? And it's going to barely catch it. So we kind of have to turn it around to get it adhered the rest of the way. But that way, when we close this guy, we have that gusset. And I'm trying to show you at an angle here. See how we have that little gusset there? So we need to make sure that when we're attaching them, we're not kind of forcing it down and removing that gusset while we're adhering this guy. So again, I'm just going to lightly wrap this guy around. Okay. And it's going to barely kind of catch right here. I just kind of have to push it a little bit. And then if I turn it over, I can push from the opposite side and get it attached that way. So I'm having, again, that gusset on both sides. Looks very good. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull that bottom score tape up and wrap it around gently. Again, making sure that I kind of have that nice straight edge along the bottom here. And I kind of I'm gonna have to push a little bit just to get it to nicely wrap around. And look at that. We have a nice little gusseted pocket here attached on the back. And then we're going to lay this down flat so you won't even see any of that on the back there. But how good is that? Looks pretty good to me. Okay, now we need to do it for the second piece over here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing. I laid this guy right in between all of my narrow score lines on the inside of those. Start with this one side over here. Now you might ask, why did I attach it around the back instead of on the inside, like most pockets are usually attached on the inside? The reason for that is because I didn't want anything to catch as you were pulling things in and out of your pocket. So this gives you a nice even, here, let me show you here. If I had them attached on the inside, it might have caught as I was pulling things in and out, but this leaves a nice straight opening all the way down to the bottom of your pocket. Whereas it could have caught right here, for example, or on the sides, if I'd done that on the inside. So that's just a little trick. If you wrap it around the back, sometimes you can't, sometimes you have to do it the other way, but this is a nice little trick to kind of make sure that that doesn't happen. Okay, and I'm just going to keep wrapping it around. Okay, and I'm going to push down gently over here to get it attached. You can even use your bone folder if you want. Probably works better against your table. Yep. Okay, and we got that nice gusset again along the bottom edge, or along the two side edges there, excuse me. It's kind of hard to see. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the back. So I'm taking that, or the bottom, excuse me, taking that bottom off, making sure that I have a nice bottom edge and folding up. And then I can kind of push down from the other side. And if you really want, you can go ahead and stick your bone folder in there and push it down. And then we've got our nice gusseted pocket. Looks pretty good to me. Okay. Looks good. So we're going to go ahead and put those two guys to the side because, again, we don't adhere them now. We have to wait to put our powder paper in before we can add them in. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is ready up our waterfalls. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put adhesive on the back of each 1/2 inch flap for these guys as well. So we're going to go ahead and turn them over and put them all along the back. And there's just 4 of them. And we will go ahead and put this 3/8 inch score tape along the back flap of my waterfall pieces. Again, this is just preparing them. It is not, we will not be adhering them just yet. I'm just preparing these waterfalls. Now, I didn't say this in the directions, but if in the spirit of being prepared, we can actually go ahead and put adhesive on the back of our pockets now too, just to have them prepared. So I'm just going to put one along, a little strip along the bottom edge here, along the top, and along the sides. Now, because these are pockets, I mean, they really are only holding a couple of cards, but we don't want them to sag. I hate that look when something gets kind of heavy and then that center sags. So I like to just put a little bit of like a diagonal strip in the middle of any pocket, because then it kind of ensures that it's not going to sag in the center. Okay, so that's how I'm doing the pockets. And we're going to do the same thing to this guy over here. Okay. And just be careful if you're using this a tool like this when you don't want to push down too hard and squish your pocket. So we just spent all that time making that nice gusset. Okay. I do get a lot of questions on what this tool is. Just it's a piece of acrylic. It's a colored piece of acrylic that I bought from a plastic store. I think it's 3x3 or 3.5. Well, maybe it's 3.5 by 3.5 or 4x4. I have a ruler right here. Why don't I measure it? Let's see. It is 3.5 by 3.5. And then I stuck a pop socket on top. So it allows me to just kind of use it to tear my score tape. I do love it. It's one of my favorite things ever. And then this is just my logo that I had made onto a pop socket, but any pop socket would do. Go, and we're done with that. And then the nice thing is you just push it down and it's a flat little tool when you're done. Easy peasy. Okay, so now everything is quote unquote prepared. If you are looking to do this in a break or multiple parts or whatever, this can be a good breaking point because you basically built your folio. Now we're going to go into all of the pattern paper here and decoration portion. Okay, so this is when you're going to want to keep all of your scraps. Okay, I know we kept the scraps for the white as well, but this for sure we want to keep all of our scraps because you'll notice in the photos I used a ton of these little strips of paper. So it's hard to, let me see if I can get a little closer here for you guys. So like for example, see that little green strip right there? There's some here, a little yellow piece right here. There are a lot of little strips of paper that I used in this kit as embellishments. Okay. And on the last page here, I did make a comprehensive list of all of that for you. But those strips came from scraps, okay, from your paper. Now, what I will say that one thing that I really like about this specific book is I actually only used technically 8 pieces of the paper. So that being said, you can go and use, number one, you can choose to use a different pattern than I did for something. Just remember, if I used it later, you'll have to replace it. Or if something goes wrong and you cut something wrong, you have the opportunity to pick another sheet of paper, which is a really nice option. Oh my God, I love this paper. I love the smell of new paper too, you guys. So this is, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the same papers that I used. For example, I used this Farmhouse Garden for the cover, but let's say you really don't like that piece and you really loved the where, I'm trying to find a big floral again, like this one, this big floral. I did use this piece on the inside of the album, so you'd have to replace it with something else. But if you want this to be your cover, that is fine. The cut measurements and everything are the same. It's just that you'd have to find a different piece of paper to use where I use this. I can go through and show you very quickly the pieces that I used so that you will know what you have left over. But okay, I can, it's actually going to be really quick. So I used the first 2 pieces here, this Farmhouse Garden and the 3x4 cards. I did not use this Perfect Day Plaid. So that is an option. And I don't believe I used this Fresh Picks either, or the 4x4 journaling cards. I did use the Blessed Blooms, and I did use this Farmhouse Plaid. I did use the multi-journaling cards, and I love the back of that too, though. Oh, so cute. I did use this paper, which is the Simple Summer Flower. Okay. I did not use this piece, the farm tags, but those would make really good embellishments. You could easily cut those out and use those tags for embellishments. That would look really good. And I used this Farmhouse's paper as well. I did not use this sheet either. I don't believe the 6x4 journaling cards, unless I did. I might have used these. So I can't honestly remember all the time. Let's see. Hold on. Let me go back here and see everything that I used. Nope, I don't think I did. I didn't use those either. So I only used 7 or 8 of the papers, which is nice. So you can go ahead. So these are the ones I use. If for whatever reason you want to keep everything the same, except you don't like the cover, or you want to switch a few things up, you totally can. And I just as a reminder, again, you do have all of these extra pieces that you could use instead, or if something goes wrong, you can use these in place of. You can also use these for the strips. You don't have to save all the scraps. You could use these for the strips as well. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Farmhouse Garden paper. Okay. And I'm just going to lay my paper back down on my pile here. And we're going to start with this Farmhouse Garden. Now I have the cutting directions in terms of how to cut them right here. I've also made a diagram for you with the pattern paper as the background. This is the direction you will cut on the pattern paper. It actually matches perfectly. So this little yellow flower and this little yellow flower in the corner, this is that paper. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and follow these directions. Let me get this out of the way. And I'm going to put them right next to my trimmer here. And I'm going to grab my trimmer. Let's open this guy up. Now, I never say this in my directions, but the first thing I'm going to actually do is trim off the barcode. So I probably should just put at the very top, trim off barcode. I always line it up at the 12-inch mark on my trimmer and cut, because a lot of companies, and Carta is one of them, gives you this nice little wiggle room area, right? So you have this like between 16th and an 1/8 inch, but if you cut right on that line, it'll be a little long. So that's why I always line it up at the 12. Okay. Now I have seen people save these and use these as strips, as decorative strips as well. I'm not going to do that, but it's going in the trash for me, but that is an option. Okay, so now that I cut that strip off, I can reorganize my paper so that my yellow flower is up in the left-hand corner here. And it says I need to cut a piece that is 7 7/8 inches wide by 12. Okay, so I'm going to take my paper to 7 7/8, which is the 1/8 inch mark right before 8. And I'm going to cut straight down at 12. Okay. And then and then in this order, it says from the top, cut in this order. So, and then you can also see from the diagram, I have to cut a 5/8 inch by 7 7/8 inch piece first. So I do like to cut smaller things on this side, on the right side of my trimmer. So I'm going to measure it. So this is 1/8, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's the 1/8 mark between 1/2 inch and 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to cut that 5/8 inch one first. And that is my first piece. Then I'm going to turn it around because I've got larger pieces again here. So now I've got 2.5. So I'm going to do 2.5 next. And I just kind of line them up here. Then I've got 4 3/4. And then 1/2 inch, so which I'm going to turn around again. Now it says the remainder is 3.5, about 3.5, which is correct. And we're going to save that for something else, but we will be using this. Okay, so don't throw that away. And then it says from the remaining 4 1/8 by 12-inch piece, cut a 1/4 inch by 12-inch piece. So that is a very narrow, long piece. And I do want to cut it from this side here. So I'm just going to turn this guy around in my trimmer, because again, I like to cut my smaller pieces on this side. And I'm going to cut that 1/4 inch at that 12-inch mark. Okay. And then it says cut this piece down to 1 1/4, or excuse me, 1/4 by 5 7/8. So then I just need to turn this guy into 2 pieces of that. So I'm going to line it up at 5 7/8, which is the tick mark right before 6. And I'm just going to make this into 2 little pieces. I have this little tiny scrap. I am going to throw this guy away. I don't think I can make him into a banner or anything. Okay, so I've got those. Then it says from remaining scrap, cut a 2.5 by 7 7/8 inch piece. We will be using the yellow side, so direction is not important. Perfect. Okay. So what does that mean? I need a 2.5 inch piece by 7 7/8. I can do that one of 2 ways. I can cut 2.5 straight down this way and leave a 12-inch piece intact, or I can go ahead and turn this to 7 7/8, which is, I think, actually what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to trim off a 2.5 inch piece from that. So that being said, let's double check in my measurements. Okay, at the back here. So it says for the yellow dot, which is the back of Farmhouse Garden, there are a couple of long pieces. There's 2 long pieces. There's a 6 1/4 and a 7 1/4. But they're 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch. So out of the remaining, once I cut the 2.5, I will have enough, I believe. Let's see here. If I do 2.5, oh yeah, I have over an inch left. So I will be fine if I cut this way. Okay. So I'm going to cut this 7 7/8 inch first, just like that. And I have this scrap I'm going to keep. Okay. And then I also want to cut, we're using the yellow side. So I could cut it on the yellow side this time if I want, to 2.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to cut that 2.5 inches. So this, like I said, the yellow side is actually what I use for the strips. So we're going to go ahead and save these. We're going to save these to the side, okay, because we want to use them for our strips later. Okay. So that being said, we can go ahead and start adhering these specific pieces to our folio. Okay. So where do I put them? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So that 5/8 inch piece that we cut first, 5/8 by 7 7/8 goes right to the top of my folio here. Now, I'm going to say this, there is a small white border. There's always going to be a small white border. Okay. And it says that actually right at the top of the cutting instructions here. There will always be a small white border of cardstock showing when adhering the pattern paper. Okay. So it says unless otherwise noted, but I've never done that. So I did have you cut them in a specific order because then they'll line up going down. So I just want to make sure that this is the correct way, which it is, so that when I go to add the next piece, it will all line up, which it's going to. So I'm going to take my liquid glue. Now you could use tape runner for this if you want, or score tape. I really don't think you need score tape for this. It's paper to paper. If it were like paper to chipboard or something, I might suggest that. But I just have these little squiggle lines on here. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere it centered on the top section of my folio here. Oh my gosh, it's already so cute. I'm already so excited. I hope you guys are enjoying this project. I had so much fun making it. Okay, and I'm just kind of pushing it down just a little bit. I just want to make sure that my adhesive gets into those corners because I don't want those to lift. But man, that is already so pretty. Okay, then the next piece is that 2.5 by 7 7/8. But remember, I corner rounded this guy. So we got to corner around the correct corners before I stick these down. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my corner rounder and just corner around those 2 bottom edges before I glue this guy in place. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some, again, adhesive. I just do a thin line all the way around. Do try and get as close to the corners or the edges as possible. And then I kind of just do a squiggly. Okay. Now this is, I'm using Nouveau Craft Deluxe adhesive. There are tons of adhesives out there on the market. I do recommend using one that is, for scrapbook paper. Because if you end up using one, like, for example, just like Elmer's glue or something, the consistency and what it's made of is wrong for scrapbook paper. And it's going to warp your paper as you put it down. Now, any wet glue is going to warp your paper if you put too much. So just keep that in mind. And I just want to make sure that I'm getting this nice and flat. So I actually just kind of open that lid up right there, just to kind of push this guy down and get it all in the corners. Okay, then the next piece is going to be that large piece for the front here. Now, the magnets, I'm not worried about them going anywhere, but what can happen over time is your pattern paper can lift kind of where those magnets are. So my little trick for that is to actually just tear off a piece of score tape and I put it right along kind of that top edge of the magnet. Okay. I don't want to go over too far because I want to make sure that you won't see this in, from the other side of the pattern paper. Like, so if I did it the whole length, remember we're going to have that white border. So I just kind of stick that down. And again, this is not because I'm worried about the magnets. This is because I'm worried about the pattern paper lifting over time. And I need to go ahead and do these corners. Okay. And we'll go ahead and glue this down right on top of that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take this score tape backing off before I put my glue on my paper. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and put that adhesive or that liquid glue along the back edge. Now I do like tape runner. I just, during the COVID pandemic, it was very hard to get my tape runner. So I kind of just started using, liquid adhesive more and more. And now it's kind of my preferred method of gluing. I will say that, liquid adhesive does not come up very easily. Like once it's down, it's down. It's not forgiving. So if you are doing something for the first time or something that you're worried about being in the correct spot, for example, or something like that, you're going to want to use a tape runner because undo will take that up. Even score tape, undo will take up. So, okay. And I'm just opening again this and burnishing it from the other side, just making sure I have a nice even seal all the way across. Then I'm going to take that last 1/2 inch flap here and go ahead and put some glue on this little flap. Not flap, I guess you should say, this little piece. Make sure again that I have the right way up, and I do. And I'm going to go ahead and stick that on the bottom. Look at that. And I love that it's continuous little piece. So it's continuous following that flower all the way up to here. It's beautiful. Okay. So we still have a couple things to cover on the outside here, mainly being these 2 side pieces and the back. So guess what? These 2 little tiny 1/4 inch by 5 7/8 inch pieces, these are going to go on to the back of your, or excuse me, onto the sides of your paper right here. Now these will not line up, but that's okay. They still coordinate. They still have the same flowers. It's still going to look really nice. Okay. So I'm just kind of lining that up. And I put some glue on the back of that strip. And this is a very thin strip. So it is going to have a border again still, but a thin strip. And I'm just kind of lightly touching it. And I just want to make sure that I'm centering it into that white space, just in case. Looks good. Okay, and I will do the same thing on this side. Now, when the piece is this small, it's hard to see exactly if there's a up or down. However, for whatever reason, this has this one little pink flower that's like pointing up. So for me, I feel like that is the correct direction on this one. The other one, I don't think really had a correct direction, but okay. And I'm sorry, I'm off camera there. I just lined it up and stuck that guy right down. Everything gets covered. Beautiful. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is the back. So we cut that piece, that leftover scrap piece that we had, that was that 3.5-ish piece, right? That is actually going to go right here on the bottom, but because it's not a large enough piece, we're going to have to piece this guy together. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have that same border of white all the way around. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and adhere the yellow on top, and there is going to be a very small amount of overlap, just like that. Okay, so I'm going to put the green down first. Okay. And again, I'm making sure that I have that same border all the way around. Okay, don't push too hard because you don't want to crush your sides. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the glue on the flower side of this guy. And line it up with the top here. And there's really only like 1/8 of an inch overlap between 1/8 and 1/4 inch. Very small. Just like that. Now I have a weird thing about seams like that. Don't ask me why. I don't know. For some reason, I don't like that. But so on the original, later, once we get our scraps going, I did cut a little tiny piece of that green X paper, and it does go on the back to cover that flap now, or that border, excuse me. So in the back here, again, underneath all of those strips of paper information, there are things that says cover, and then back cover right here. So that little piece, that 3/8 by 7 7/8, that goes right there on that back cover piece. Okay, so that is that's just like a design choice that I like to make. If you don't want to do that, you do not have to. It is completely up to you. Okay, but that's just a design choice on my account. So that is our folio outside covered. Look at how good it's already looking. Love it. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and start working on the inside. Once we do the inside, then we can start adding in the rest of our elements, like our pockets and our waterfalls. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the inside here. So kind of everything from here down. Okay, and then we'll work on the accordions, adding the rest of our elements, and then the rest of the pattern paper from there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this guy to the side for a few minutes while I work on cutting the inside. Now the inside I used the plaid for, so we're going to use that plaid paper next. I just kind of wanted to show you where it's going to go. So like I said, it's on that inside of that top flap. It is on the inside of that bottom flap, and it is along the entire back edge of the waterfall. It's hard to see, but it is back there. Okay. So we're going to grab our trimmer again. Just close up my glue. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that farmhouse plaid. Now, if again, you like something better, like maybe you like this blue better, or maybe you like this red check better, you can use any of that. That was just 2 plaids that I didn't use, but you could use any of those pieces if you want. You can also use other pieces, just as a reminder that I did use them. So, most of them. So if you want to change it, you'll have to change the other piece later. Okay. So we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to cut off our barcode first. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off my barcode, and I do line it up again at that 12-inch mark on my trimmer. And I'm going to cut straight down. Okay, this again is scrap for me, but if you want to keep it, you can. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and the cuts are very similar on this. Okay, so we're going to do that same 7 7/8 by 12 inches tall cut. So I'm going to go ahead and line this guy up at 7 7/8 inches over here and cut straight down. Then I'm going to turn this guy 90 degrees, and I'm going to cut them in this order again. So it's a 5/8, and so, like I said, I like to cut my small pieces on this side. So I'm cutting my 5/8, and it's already 7 7/8. Then I have a 5 7/8 inch piece. Okay, so the 5 7/8 inch piece is actually the one right before 6. Okay. Then I have a 1/2 inch piece. So I'm going to turn it around again and just cut right at that 1/2 inch mark. And I'll lay that next to my 5/8 because I can see which one's smaller. And then I need a 4 3/4. So I have this 4 3/4 piece left. Now this is a 1/4 inch piece that I don't believe I used, mainly because it's just green. It doesn't have any of those X's on the back, but you can keep it if you want to use it as a strip down the road. So I'm going to put that to the side. And then it says from the remaining 4 1/8 by 12 inch piece, cut a 2 1/2 by 7 7/8. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go ahead and put it at that 7 7/8 inch mark up here. Okay, so I have my scrap, and again, I always was using the opposite side for my strips of paper, and I need my 2 1/2 inches. So I'm going to cut right at 2 1/2. And then I have this little scrap right here. Okay. Now, if you wanted to do that little 3/8 inch backing, it did come from this piece right here. So if you want to turn that over and do it right now, you can go ahead and cut that 3/8 inch. So the 3/8 inch is the 1/8 inch mark right after 1/2. And if you want to cut that right now, you can, and we can add it onto the back of the folio. So I'm just, again, these are all the scraps that I am collecting that I will be using for strips down the road. Okay. So now that I have all of those pieces, I can go ahead and start adhering. So because I just kind of cut this and it wasn't in the directions or anything, I'm going to adhere this first just so that we have it done and then I don't have to worry about it. But I'm just going to go ahead and put that right along the back. Again, this is my little OCD designer thing. If you do not like this, you do not have to add it. Honestly, it looks great the way it is. I just don't like seams like that. Now you're going to say, well, Nikki, isn't it a seam anyway when you stick the other thing on top of it? And the answer is yes. But for me, for whatever reason, that seam does not bother me. I don't know why. Like I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's a little crazy for me. So I just lined it up on the bottom of the yellow and then pushed it down just a little bit so that it covered any yellow that would be showing. But so then we got this nice little edge right here. Okay. And I just line that up and I just want to make sure that it sticks before I turn it over. That is that little seam. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to go ahead and start working on the back here. So we have to turn our page and it says adhere the 2 1/2 by 7 7/8 inch piece to the back of the top of the folio. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open this and it's going to the back of the top flap. Now it is again on that quarter rounded side. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we need to corner round it before we stick it down. Okay, so I'm going to corner around these two ends here. And that, oh, you know what? And again, I almost forgot. I'm worried about the score. I'm not worried about the magnets. I'm worried about the paper lifting over time. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put that score tape right along that top edge of my magnet here. And I took a little too much, so I'm just going to work that. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and corner around this. I am doing it with the dark green at the top. Okay. And I'm going to take this backing off. I will go ahead and put my adhesive on the back here. Again, I'm using liquid adhesive, but if you want to use any type of adhesive, you can. Okay, and just a reminder, this is where my my top flap attaches to my folio. So I am going to cover that little attachment to hide it. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm making sure that I'm leaving that little 1/8 inch border all the way around for my white. And then I'm going to go ahead and push down here. And I'm paying a little extra special attention to where the magnets hit up top here. And just gonna go ahead and stick that in place. I do like to do a little bit of hand heat sometimes. So that's kind of when I'm doing this little rubby thing. It's like a friction hand heat to kind of get that glue to seal in that spot. Okay, beautiful. Now let's go ahead and open this way as well. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and the next piece we're gonna add is that 5/8 inch piece. Now look at that. Don't ask me how or why it matches, because it shouldn't, because this was from a side, but somehow they did. They managed to make it match, and I'm very happy about that. So, because I don't know if you remember, we cut the 7 7/8 inch first, and then we cut this 2.5 inch piece from a scrap. So it just shouldn't match, but it does. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this guy down next. Okay. Again, this is my 5/8 inch piece, the larger piece. And look at how good that looks. Oh. Thank you, Echo Park and Carta. So smart in their design. Perfect. Okay, then that next piece down here is going to be the larger piece, that 5 7/8. And again, we want to make sure that it's matching going down. Okay, and this is going to be that whole back piece where our waterfall is going to go. Okay, so I'm just adding the glue in here. And I'm going to center it into this big, large back square. Stick it down. Okay. And then, oh, no, not that piece. The next piece is going to be this little 1/2 inch piece right here. Okay, so we'll add that in next. This plaid lining up just makes my OCD so happy. I have a friend that says it shouldn't be called OCD, it should be called CDO because it's in alphabetical order. Hope you like my little jokes. Okay. And then our last piece here, whoops, is this one. Okay, and don't forget we have to corner around the bottom. Okay, so I corner around that bottom edge. Oh, look at that. Sometimes I do a spiral. It just randomly happens. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and put this down. Again, leaving that 1/8 inch border all the way around, and I'm covering up that seam where the bottom flap attaches to my folio. Okay, I'm just using some hand heat again to make sure this sticks nicely in place. Look at how good that looks. Oh, perfect. Okay, so the next steps in the directions are actually to add the pattern paper to the accordion. So let's go ahead and do that. Just because, you know, we'll keep going in the direction, and then we'll go ahead and add the rest of the elements in. But look at it's turning out so good so far. Oh, makes me so happy. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're actually gonna, let's cut both pieces first. So we're gonna cut the blessed blooms and the farmhouses together, okay? Because we're gonna use them back to back. So here's the blessed blooms and the farmhouses are right. Come on. Right here. Okay, perfect. So the first thing that we have to do, okay, it says cut 2 pieces that are 5 3/4 by 12. Okay, So we're gonna go, I'm gonna turn this guy, and I'm actually not gonna cut the strip off this time, only because I really don't need to, and you'll see why. So I'm gonna cut this, that's 5 3/4. So this needs to be 5 3/4 inches tall by 12 inches wide. So I've just turned it on its side, okay? And I'm cutting that 5 3/4 by 12, okay? And I'm gonna cut the next one to 5 3/4 by 12. Okay, so I've got 2 pieces. I end up with this little 1/2 inch border on both sides, and I'm going to keep it because maybe I'm going to use it as my strips down the road. Okay. Then I have to cut these 2 pieces, okay, down again. So I need to cut these down into 6 pieces of 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. And it shows you in the diagram right here what we're doing. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do 3 3/4. Okay, and 3 3/4. Right, I'm just stacking them like this so that they go in order. And 3 3/4. Okay, then I also need a 1/4 inch piece. She probably should have cut first, actually. 1/4 inch, so it's a little hard to do. Lining it up on my trimmer here. So I need a 1/4 inch by 5 3/4. Okay, so there's that one. Now this guy is scrap again, so I'm gonna go ahead and put him in my scrap pile. Okay, put that guy to the side. Now this guy again is the same way. Now because I just had such trouble cutting that 1/4 inch, I'm gonna cut the 1/4 inch off of this side first. So I've got my 1/4 inch first this time, just because I had a little bit of trouble cutting it. And then 3 3/4 and 3 3/4 and 3 3/4 with my leftover 1/2 inch going into my scrap. Okay. Put that guy right on top. Take that over here. Okay. Then I have my farmhouses piece, and this one I basically am doing the same thing again, except for this time I'm not doing those 1/4 inch cuts. So let's go ahead and cut at 5 3/4. Okay, and 5 3/4. Again, leaving me with that little 1/2 inch strip at the bottom that I will keep to the side. And then I need 6 pieces that are 3 3/4 wide. So I'm just going to take each piece and cut them at 3 3/4. And then I have my little 3/4 inch piece here that I will put over to the side as scrap. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Now I am kind of stacking them, which I kind of mentioned, because they are going to line up next to each other. So I want to make sure that as I put them down, I have the right pieces next to each other so that they line up. That again is another just design element on my account. You do not have to worry about that if you don't want to. Okay. So now that we've got our pieces, we're going to go ahead and start adding them into the accordion. Okay. So what I did is I actually put the farmhouses on the outside, and then on the inside is the beautiful blooms. So we can go ahead and start with the farmhouses. So I'm actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the left one and I'm just going to kind of open it all the way like this, and then take my first stack of farmhouses, and they should line up perfectly just like that. And they do. Okay, that's great. So I'm going to go ahead and start gluing these guys down. Okay, again, making sure that I'm leaving that 1/8 inch border all the way around of white. Okay. Now, again, you could have used a different pattern paper for this, or if you like that green plaid on the back, you could use that. It might be a little busy with green plaid on this multicolor plaid, but hey, to each his own. Do what you want. Okay. Look at that. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and do the next one. Again, leaving that 1/8 inch gap. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and put this last one down over here. Okay, and I'm just, again, this corner lifted a little bit, so I'm just kind of fixing it as I'm going. Want to make sure this is nice and straight. Okay, and then what I can do too is kind of just fold it back up on itself and use that to hopefully get everything in place where it needs to be, and then just check it. Looking really good. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing to this guy. So I'm just going to open him up again and start laying these pieces down. Now, does this one go this way? Let's see. That is wrong. Okay, so let's try it this way. This here. Okay, no, what is wrong here? Maybe this one. This one here. Yes, okay, okay. And this one. Yes, perfect. Okay. But I do like to check that layout before I glue anything down, right? Makes it a little bit easier than having to try and rip something up. Okay. Again, I'm leaving that white border around. But see how this, I just kind of remembered this when I told you earlier, but see how that texture is the same on this pattern paper as the white cardstock? I just love that look. Okay, next one. And it's a very tight weave paper, which I really like too. Okay. Looking good. Okay, and then I can fold them back up again and just kind of hold this in place. Now, what I will say is I didn't try and like make the houses line up going this way, and I'm okay with that. You do have like a little bit of wiggle room to try and do that, but no more than 1/2 inch. So just be aware of that. Maybe if you cut the 1/2 inch, if it's maybe, I'm not, because I haven't tried this, so I don't want to say this and then you do it and then I'd be wrong. But you could try cutting the 1/2 inch in between, and then cutting, that 5 3/4 inch piece off of the barcode on the bottom and seeing if that would work. But I'm not sure. So don't hold me to that. But I actually like it this way because then it's almost like there's a line here, a line here. So it's like a line in between, line of houses, line of houses, line of houses. So I am happy with it not be linear completely. But if that is something you want to try, you could try that. Or you could buy another sheet and just cut 5 3/4 off of the top of both sheets if you wanted to do that too. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and work on the inside pieces. And we actually don't need that anymore. So I'm going to put that way over there. And the inside pieces here, with that little strip or stripe or however you want to say it, is actually going to go on the inside of that little piece right here. Now these again should match, something should match on this. No. I'm just trying to remember what I did. So, okay, so this one, so then actually let's put this one on this side. Okay, because this one matches. So that would match just like that. So we're going to do it like this. Okay, so I've just opened up my folio completely. You can't, it's hard to see over here because it's not, you can't see that far, but I've opened it completely on this side. Okay, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and start gluing everything in place. So again, I've made sure that all my things line up horizontally. And I'm gonna go ahead and start with this little 1/4-inch strip. Put it in the middle here. And I can actually line it up with that piece of the plaid almost. I think the plaid's a little bit taller, but you can mostly line it up just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and start adding in the flower. Okay. Again, just making sure that you have that 1/8 inch gap all the way around. Okay. Beautiful. Close this guy up. Okay, and then we will move on to the other side. Now, it was kind of a happy accident because I cut that 1/4 inch first. They actually should line up this way too, which they do. Well, yep, they do. So actually that was was luck. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with gluing this little strip down again in place. Okay, and then I will move on to the larger pieces here. Now, while I'm doing this, and I'm kind of just, working along here, I want to talk to you about the photo mats just a little bit. So the photo mats, quote unquote, that I guess I should say photo mats that I use, they're just white paper. They're just cheap white, like 65-pound paper. And I put them in for suggested photo placement, or where, if I were actually filling this with photos right now, where I would put the photos. I'm not actually personally a huge photo mat person. So if it were me, I would probably actually forgo the mat and just put my photos down. I do oftentimes print from a company also that does like a small white border around prints. So it already kind of has that mat on it anyway. So that is kind of just an option. So I just kind of wanted to say that that's why I didn't necessarily want it included in your kit, because for me, I actually wouldn't use it, because I either am going to use the mat that is already printed on my photos, or that I just won't have a mat at all. But if you want to have a mat, that is perfectly fine. You can do that as well. I will also say that the nice thing about having those mats is, if you are giving it as a gift, it's also like suggested photo placement, right? So that way they can go ahead and put their photos right on top of those mats and not have to worry about where to put their photos. Oh my gosh, look at how cute. Looking so good. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is actually, well, it wants me to, so then it wants me to keep cutting, actually, I believe, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to skip down to adhering the pockets and adhering the waterfalls. Okay, so let me just go ahead and Yeah. Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Oh, okay, I see. It's wanting it want I wrote that you should decorate it first, which we totally can do. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that because it says once they're covered with pattern paper, I can add them to the inside of my my folio. So we're gonna need the multi-journaling cards piece for this section. Okay. Now, there are several elements of this piece that I did keep because I wanted to be able to use them as elements, as cut apart elements in the folio. So, for example, it on your kit right here, it says for these all of these strips right here, it says save. For this card, it says save. All these word strips, it says save, and then this card, it says save. So we're going to save the ones that I need to, and then from what's remaining, cut what we need. The easiest way I found to do this is we're actually going to cut on this 6-inch line first. Okay. Now in this case, and kind of this case only, I am actually lining my cut line up with the pattern paper underneath. Only because I want to be able to save this entire card and this entire card. And if I don't cut on the pattern paper line, it's going to be a little off. So I just cut this straight down in half here. Okay. And then I'm going to work on this piece first. So the next piece that it wants me to save is this this card that says together is our favorite place to be. And I'm lining it up again on the pattern paper line and cutting. And then I'm going to cut the strip off of the bottom at this point. Again, lining it up with the pattern paper on this time. Okay. And there's a little bit of white showing, but that's okay because I think I have to trim that down again anyway. So then I need to save all of these little journaling card things. So I'm just going to cut right along that edge as well, saving those. Okay, so I've saved those. Now this is the piece that I'm going to use and cut from. So I'm just going to kind of hold that to the side for right now because I need to save a few other things here. For example, this welcome card. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut right on that print line again, save that welcome card. And then I need to save all of these strips of paper down here as well. So I'm just cutting right there on that. And you know what? I'm actually going to leave the bottom because I'm going to cut all of these apart anyway. So it'll be easier if I leave the bottom on. So I'm just going to leave that one like this. So I end up with these two kind of scrap pieces of paper that I'm going to need. I'm going to cut these down to what I need them to be. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. We're actually going to use the other side. I love this side. And it says here, from the remaining elements, cut 2 pieces that are 3 1/4 inches wide by 4 1/4 inches tall, and 2 pieces that are 3 1/4 inches wide by 1 3/4 inches tall. So neither piece, I believe, is large enough to cut both out of one. For those 2 larger pieces. So let me just, because this would have to be 8 1/2, and it's not, it's only 8 1/4. So what does that mean? That means that we're actually going to have to cut 1 3 1/4 and a 4/4 piece from this and 1 from this. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm actually going to cut this down to 3 1/4 inches wide. Okay. So I'm going to cut this down to 3 1/4 inches wide. So I'm just trimming that little 3/4 of an inch piece off from right here. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut that 1 4 1/4 piece. So I've got my first piece here. And then I believe I can get both of my 1 3/4 inch pieces out, which I think I can. So I'm going to cut my 1 3/4. Okay. And 1 3/4. I can. Beautiful. Now I know these are tiny little strips, but these are exactly what I was using for the cards, or the, excuse me, little strips of paper. So I'm going to keep that. And then this one, again, same thing, a 3¼ inch piece by 4¼ So I'm just going to cut a 3¼ inch piece off of this side, save that, and a 4¼ inch piece from right here. Save that. I save everything until the end. Okay, so now I've got all the pieces that I need. These can go into my scrap pile. Okay, and these will go to the side because I will embellish with them later. Okay. Looking good. Okay. So now it says adhere the 3¼ by 4¼ inch pieces to the insides of pockets. Okay. So I'm going to grab my 2 pocket pieces here, and we're going to carefully glue these guys into the inside. Okay. And we have enough wiggle room to do that just fine. And again, there's that same white border. So I'm going to add my my glue to the back of this card here. And I'm just going to line this up and push it down until I get to where I have that 1/8 inch of border all the way around. And just kind of hold that in place. I can, again, use my bone folder, push it down there. Okay, and we'll do the same thing with this guy. Beautiful. And then these 2 pieces are actually for the outer side here. Now, there's actually a lot of red flower on that one already. So I'm going to put the red flower here on this guy. That's just, again, a personal design choice on my account. Okay. Just centering that right on that pocket. And I'm going to do the same thing on this guy. Perfect. Now I can go ahead and add them into the inside of the bottom flap. Okay. And again, we've already put our score tape on the back, which is nice. And I'm going to just go ahead and open this guy back up. And I'm working in this bottom section here. Now, when I glue these down, I want to make sure that I'm putting them kind of even top and bottom, side to side. So what does that mean? That means that there's actually a little more room side to side on here than top to bottom. That's just kind of how it ended up working. But I want to make sure that I'm leaving equidistant between the edge of the pattern paper and the pocket on both sides here, in the center, as well as top and bottom. So where I have it now is almost perfect. The distance between the pattern paper and the edge of this white cardstock is the same as this one and the center. So it's almost exactly where it needs to be. And then the height on the top and bottom are perfect too. So leaving one of them in place, I'm actually just going to go ahead and pick up the other one here and take off all the backing of my score tape. And sometimes this is where tweezers can help. And I'm actually just gonna hold this guy with a pair of my tweezers. And I'm gonna do that same lineup technique again, using that view of the right edge as kind of my go-to. And look at that, that looks pretty good. Also really nice using this plaid paper, as you can easily make it straight. Look at that, beautiful. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing to this guy. Okay, so I'm taking off all my score tape. I'm kind of doing it off camera, I apologize, but you know how to take backing off score tape, right? Okay. And we will go ahead and I will use my tweezers again. And using this guide this time, I'm just going to kind of look at that center area. I'm going to line them up top and bottom. That looks good. And stick that guy down just like that. Beautiful. Now these white cards that we had, these are for the inside of these pockets here. So you can add them now if you want, or you can wait till we decorate them later. On the directions, I did tell you to cut 6, and I originally, my plan was to have 6 in here. However, my sample ended up being a little bit thinner. I did correct that for these. So hopefully 3 will fit this time. If they don't, you can go back down to 2. But that's why only 2 are pictured in the photograph. Okay. So we can leave them in here for an hour. We'll take, actually, let's just take them out because we still need to decorate them. But that is where those guys are going to go. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do is work on our waterfall section. Okay. So it actually, the next step in here is to cut the pattern paper for the waterfalls, and then also these guys as well, doing the 3 or 4 journaling cards. But let's go ahead and actually attach the waterfalls first. So let's skip over to page 8 and then we'll go backwards. And we're going to go ahead and add the waterfalls. So it says attach waterfalls to the inside of the folio, the farthest back wall, this guy right here. And we're going to make sure to stagger them from left to right as you place them down. So how are we going to do that? We're going to take our first waterfall here. And what we're going to do is we're going to line it up, and it's flat. Okay. So see, the adhesive is on the back here and it's flat, and we're going to line it up with that top left corner of our pattern paper and glue that down, stick that down. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that first. Now, sometimes, especially when I'm starting at the top, it's easier for me to do it upside down. So this is my little kind of hack for it. So I'm just going to show you guys. I took off that backing of that score tape. I'm going to, again, line up my corner of my paper with this, well, it's the right edge now, but it's the left edge. Okay. Going to line up my white cardstock with the corner of that pattern paper, making sure I'm straight all the way down, which I am. And then I'm going to go ahead and push down on that. Now I can keep going upside down actually, if I want, or you can turn it around. I'll do one upside down and then I'll do the rest of the right side up. But the next thing I'm going to do, okay, so this is flat against the back of the back wall. This one is going to be the same thing. It's going to be flat against the back wall. We're just going to go ahead and line up that edge of that 1/2 inch with the score edge of the waterfall underneath it. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the backing. Again, I'm going to line up that cut. And now I don't have to be super tight on this waterfall. I believe there is plenty of wiggle room. But you know, if you want to be tighter, then you can. Okay. And then before I center it, before I stick it all the way down, I just want to make sure that I'm straight top and bottom here along this edge. And there we go. So I'm starting to build my staggered waterfall. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and finish the other 2 from this direction. So I've got, again, my left, then my right. So now we got to go back to the left, and I just keep pushing up these waterfalls each time. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take the backing off, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to, for when I work this way, I tend to kind of try and fold it a little bit in the other direction just so that I can see what I'm doing. And then I line up this left edge with the pattern paper. I line up that bottom edge with the fold from the waterfall prior to it and push down on that. Then I've got my 3rd waterfall in place. See how it's looking? Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and do that last one, this guy right here. Now, if you were super loose with your waterfalls, you might want to check to make sure you have plenty of room, but you should. Just if you kind of do this and then hold it, which you do, I have plenty of room. If it's hanging over the pattern paper, you're going to need to trim this guy, or you can just stop at 3, whatever you want. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and again, I'm going to turn this kind of a little bit that way because it's a little easier for me. I'm going to line up the edge of that pattern paper with the edge of my waterfall. I'm not lining it up with the bottom corner because I still want to line it up with that top edge fold of the waterfall before it. And I'm just going to push down. Okay. And that is my 4th waterfall in place. Just like that. Okay. That is all of the elements inside now. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to close this guy up because we still got to cover our waterfall pieces. Okay. And we got to cover our cards. But we're almost done, you guys, besides the embellishing. Oh my gosh, so cute. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to flip back one here. Okay. And we need to cut our simple summer flower. Okay. Now we need, it says cut 3 pieces that are 12 inches wide by 3.5 inches tall. Okay. Easy enough. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this guy on its side. I'm not going to trim the barcode off the bottom again this time. I don't need to, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do 3.5. Okay. So 3.5 inches tall. Yeah. So it's, and then wide. So this is 12 inches wide. Okay. By 3.5. Then I've got another 3.5. So I need 3 of these. Those 3.5. And another one. That's 3.5 by 12. I've got this big piece on the bottom. And again, this becomes a scrap that I use. Okay. Put that in my scrap pile. Then it says trim horizontal. Wait, sorry. Then cut those 6 pieces to 5 3/4 wide by 3.5 tall. So they're already 3.5 tall. So I just need to cut them into 5 3/4 wide, and we need 6 of them. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim. I'm going to push this up a little bit. 5 3/4. Okay. Again, oops, it's getting caught on there. Again, I did use a lot of these little strips, so I'm keeping those for my strip pieces. Okay. Then I'm going to keep going here. So it needs to be 5 3/4 inches wide and 5 3/4 inches wide. Okay. And I'm going to keep that little strip piece. Okay. Again, one more strip here to go. So I've got my 6 pieces, 5 3/4 and 5 3/4. Again, saving my little scrap. Okay. So I've got my 6 pieces here. Okay. Before I put my trimmer away, there was one more thing. It says trim horizontal 6 by 4 cards from the multi-journaling cards to 5 3/4 by 3.5. Okay. So that means those pieces that I put to the side earlier, these 2 large cards, I need to trim them down. They're not quite even, so we'll have to trim them individually. Okay, let's see how big they are first. This welcome one is 6 by 4. Okay, and this together one is 3 7/8 by 6-ish. So we're gonna trim evenly so that they're all the way around. Okay. So how do I do that? Easy. Okay. We're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take this one first because this one's easiest, and it needs to be 5 3/4 inches wide. Okay. So that means I'm gonna cut 1/8 of an inch off of each side here. Okay, 1/8 of an inch. So when I get it down to that 5 3/4. I have it, it's even on both sides, and then 3.5 inches tall. So let's see here. Let's cut 1/4 of an inch off the bottom. Let's see how much would that give me. I always like to kind of look first. Okay. So I'm actually going to cut a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch off the top. Just a little bit. Okay, and then this needs to be 3.5. So let's see what I got here. So it's a little, I want the green to be even on the top and the bottom. So I'm gonna have to trim that top piece just a little bit. So I'm cutting this down again so that it's 3.5. So it's a little more than 3.5. It's like 3.5 plus a 16. So I'm gonna just trim off a hair, and a nice sharp blade is how you're gonna want to do that. But that is what I want, 3.5 by 5 3/4. Then I'm gonna do the same thing on this guy. So let's see. That first. Let's see where I get it 1/2 inch here. Okay, so that is too much. So let's do right there, see what happens. Okay, so I'm almost right on that line. I'm right above it. Let's see. Yeah, that should be good. Okay, so I'm at 3.5 now on even on both sides. And then I need 5 3/4 wide. So we're gonna do 1/8 of an inch off of each side. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I made sure that I was centered with my cards there. Okay. Oh, and then it says so we can go ahead and cut these guys too. Choose 6 journaling cards from the 3x4 cards and adhere them to the front of the pre-cut pocket inserts. Okay. And then the remaining 3x4 cards to the back of the plaid side up. Okay. So what does that mean? We're actually just going to cut all of these guys apart. So we're not going to need our trimmer again until we do the strips. So I think it'd just be easier if we just cut all these guys apart first. So let's go ahead and cut them apart. So I'm going to cut on that 4-inch line if I can, but like this one was a little, let's see, that one was a little taller than 4. So I'm actually going to trim that down. Okay, and if you end up with like a little, like I got a tiny little frayed edge right here, I actually just usually take like a strong nail file and kind of do this, and that makes that cut just fine. That kind of just was bugging me. Okay, then and then this time I have a little bit of the pattern above it showing, which also bothers me. So I'm gonna attempt to trim this guy down a little bit as well. Just a little. Okay. And then let's go ahead and cut him at 4 inches, hopefully. Let's see. It's going to be a little less than 4, but that's okay. Okay. Good. And then this guy at 4 inches. Okay. Then we're going to cut all of these guys apart. So hopefully they're right at the 3 mark. If they're not, we can adjust it as needed. But my biggest pet peeve is when I cut them apart and like a little bit of the pattern next to it is showing. So that's kind of, I just try and make sure that doesn't happen. So I'm going to cut all 12 of these apart. And then you're going to pick your 6 favorites. We can do that in a minute though. Now that we've cut them apart, that's fine. Okay, so let's see, what else does it say next? Attach waterfalls, which we already did, and then it says here pattern paper is shown in photos. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the photos for the waterfall. And we can go ahead and add them in. So the first waterfall that I did, like that top one right there, is actually that welcome one. So this one that we cut down, I actually put that as my first waterfall. And then I actually ended up covering up the welcome, and I put a different sticker on it that says Home Sweet Farmhouse. So that is up to you, but that is definitely I'm just going to do it how I did it originally, but you can mix and match however you want to get these guys down. Okay. I also really just like having that image kind of as the first one, but then I will say that, you know, you won't have a photo on this. So if you need more room for photos, you can always turn this over or use this welcome card somewhere else. Okay. The next one, if we look at the next picture, so it says waterfall 1 in pockets, but this is waterfall 1 back and 2 front. So the back, I ended up using one of those florals. Okay, so I can go ahead and put that down next. The glue's running out. Turn that over so that I can. Okay, so I have that floral next. Okay, and then opposite that, I did green. Okay, so that's the back of one of these florals. Okay, and then it says waterfall 2 back is another green, so it's the backing of that floral again. So it's green and green on each side. Okay. Then we've got floral here. And then on the back of that one is floral as well. Okay. Now this next one here, I did the together is my favorite place to be. But again, if you don't want to use the card, you could always use the back, or you could use a different pattern from your set. You could also actually use the 6x4 card pattern paper in your kit and just, you know, alternate kind of where you have a card and where you have. So let me show you. Sorry. So you could use these and just kind of alternate where you had a card versus a mat, and do that too. That would be cute. Okay, and then on the back of this guy is the green. Perfect. Okay, now I didn't cover these white strips, but you could take some of the, you know, remaining pattern paper and use that for sure to cover that up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and shut this guy just for like that. And then we need to add our cards to our pocket pieces here. Okay, so like I said, you're going to pick your favorite 6, whatever 6 those are to you. So I will choose what I chose originally, and it only shows 4, so I'll have to choose 2 more additional ones. But I chose this come sit stay with me, or come sit and stay a while, and I chose this farmhouse plotter and you are my home and my adventure, as well as this make every day count. Now I need to choose 2 more. Oh gosh, it's so hard. So I like to choose, like the way I like to choose these things typically is I like to make sure kind of I have every color represented. So for example, yes, there's green in this, and this is almost kind of 2 whites, but I don't have like a solid green background or a solid blue. So this is a good solid blue one. So I'm definitely going to use that one. And then I need to pick which other green I want to use. So these 4 are going to end up being for my back, so I can do that. And then I just kind of have to figure out which one I think goes with it. And I actually really like this welcome home one. I also do like this home sweet home one too, but I think I like the welcome home a little better. So I'm going to go ahead and use those 6 as my fronts. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to glue all of them down, okay, to the front of these 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch cards. So again, you are going to have that white border, okay. Now, this being said, I will say again, you are losing an opportunity for a photo here. So if you prefer to have photos on both sides, you can go ahead and just use the blue plaid, or you could do some photo, like some with the cards and some without. You could mix it up with another pattern paper on both sides, and so that you have pattern and pattern, and then you can stick a photo on both sides. Whatever you want to do, I want you to make this book your own, but that's just kind of, the little things that I think about when I'm designing. I do love these cards, and I love to show them because I just think that they're such a nice little design element. And some of them are just so sweet. But again, we are scrapbookers, and if we need the room for the photos, we need the room for the photos. So I will not be upset if you want to use different paper or anything, okay? And as we're coming to an end on this, I just want to say thank you guys so much for spending the time with me to make this folio. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And don't forget, you have the directions and you can make it all over again. You can use the same pattern paper. You can use different pattern paper, whatever you want. Okay. I love that like mustard color, so pretty. Okay, so now that I have the fronts all done on these guys, I'm going to go ahead and do the back sides, which is going to be this blue plaid. I'm pretty sure, no, actually I'm almost positive we have my family owns a cabin up north, and it's a log cabin. Like don't get it's beautiful, but anyway, I'm pretty sure the towels we have up there, or a set of the towels, I guess I should say, are this exact pattern. So when I see this, it just automatically makes me think of the log cabin and being outside, and which is very, this pattern, this paper is farm, but I think, and barn, but it would go perfect with all of my pictures from there as well. There's no, we don't have a barn per se or a farmhouse, but all of these colors are perfect for that house and the scenery and everything. Okay, so I'm just again gluing the back sides down on all of these. Okay. And you can tell I did embellish these as well. So there, there are stickers and photos on them. If you have this PDF in a, downloaded, you can blow up the photos on the PDF too. So they, they'll print this size, but you can always blow them up on screen as well. Okay. So now I've got all my cards done here. So there's 6 total. And I like to, again, kind of just make sure that I'm representing all of the colors in each group. So let's do it like that. Why not? Okay. And I typically always kind of turn one the opposite direction. So I'll do, kind of like this, and then turn that one around and put this in. Or I love that one, not for the front. I'm sorry, I just do. Okay, and then I'll turn one around again, and that's just, again, just a thing I do. And it is pretty tight in there, but so again, you might only be able to do the 2, but at least for now you can stick those guys in there. You could always put these in your album somewhere else down the road, or you could even make like a little pocket here and put those there if you wanted to as well. Just for now they fit. They might not fit after you embellish them, but I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to show you. So see how it was kind of, it was almost like it had too much room. Look at it's perfect now. It fits just great. And then you'll have room up here too for the embellishments. So I think that you guys are really going to love putting this album together. I always just do the pattern paper with you guys. And the reason for that is because I want you to have the opportunity to decorate as much as you want or as little as you want. Personally, the decorating part is like the icing for me. It's kind of like the extra tidbit, but I love the building of the book and getting it all together. But it is, look at how good it looks. And it's nice and sturdy, looks great. And then, so again, for the embellishments, you do have all that extra pattern paper that is in your kit. So you could easily, I didn't do this and I didn't even think about it, but these would make really good embellishments using those, even instead of the strips in some places. That would look really good, or just behind an element. That would be like a sticker. That would be super cute. Or you could make cards out of these. The 4x4 cards have some really nice sayings. So you could always do that with these leftover as well. Plus then you have the gorgeous stickers. Okay, so these are the stickers that I used throughout the album, and I used almost every single one. So just keep that in mind. And then your brads as well. So I do really love the chipboard, the little extra chipboard you get on the bottom. And I love these epoxy brads. I didn't use these large Jimmy ones as much because I was worried about them kind of making too, like, they're kind of really bumpy and I didn't want them to leave a mark on my album. I should have used them on like the cover, but I don't know, I already had used these, so I kind of didn't. But so you won't see these so much in the album, but the chipboard and these flat epoxy brads and the pearly brads I did use throughout the album, so you will definitely see those as well. And then also don't forget about all of your little strips, which you can use as I did, or use the extra paper that is in your kit. Okay, and I also used these. I love using little words on photos, so I did use a lot of these and all of these as well. So you will see those fussy cut out, and then these are your little strips. So I hope you guys had a great time. Please feel free to reach out to the store if you have questions, and they know how to reach me as well. Or you can follow me on YouTube. There is another class coming out this month as well, same month with the My Favorite Summer. So I will be recording that video and that will be available through your local scrapbook store as well. So I just again want to say thank you to all the stores. Thank you to all the students that have taken this class, and thank you to Echo Park Cartabella for allowing me to be their inaugural class kit. So thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great day and stay happy, healthy, and crafty.